In Oregon, caring for the environment is a really big deal, and the leadership for that starts at the governor's office. Last night, environmental reporter Cale Williams talked with Governor Kotek about some kind of thorny issues, including the environmental impact of her housing priorities. Tonight, in part two, he'll get into even more controversial issues like offshore wind and timber harvests.
Few places in the country have renewable energy like the Pacific Northwest. We've got panels collecting solar energy from the sun, and a whole system of dams that draw carbon-free electricity from our rivers. When the wind blows, we harness that power with turbines, but only on land. That could change in the next decade, though, as the federal government has plans to develop floating wind turbines off the southern Oregon coast. Earlier this year, the federal government finalized 2 areas off Brookings and Coos Bay for offshore wind development. But many on the south coast feel like their concerns about the impacts of offshore wind have gone unheard.
Tribal members, folks in the seafood industry, feel like they're being steamrolled by the feds, that there is not meaningful engagement. And they wrote a letter to you asking you to, come out against the auctions that are supposed to happen later this year until that roadmap is fulfilled. Is that something that you're willing to entertain?
Well, the good thing about where we are, I think, on offshore wind is I agree with local communities that this hasn't been the best process. There are concerns as Oregonians that we want to address. Our fishing industry, the cultural impacts of that related to our tribe's concerns. I'm very committed to working with the local community so everybody gets heard. So if we do move forward, we do it in the right way.
Gotcha. I mean, the auctions are scheduled for later this year.
Yes, the auctions themselves. I mean, my understanding of that process is there's a lot of process that happens even after the auctions if they were to go forward. But we are engaging on a regular basis with BOEM, the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, about what the next steps are. I am not going to let the federal government expose Oregon communities to really bad consequences.
Another policy facing considerable pushback is the Habitat Conservation Plan for state forests in western Oregon. The plan, as it's currently proposed, would protect some areas in Tillamook and Clatsop counties from logging, and would in turn shield the state from lawsuits over the Endangered Species Act. It would also cut down on timber harvests and the revenue those counties get from logging. In February, Kotek sent a letter saying she would work in the next session to find state money to offset those losses. But that hasn't exactly satisfied people who live in those counties.
The folks that I talked to out there say that, that money would be well and good, but would not replace potential jobs that are lost. What would you say to them?
I think there are a complex set of possible consequences for the HCP. And I want to make sure as governor to work with local communities to try to adjust for any impacts there will be. What the HCP will bring to everybody after a couple years of work is certainty, right? I think one of the challenges when it comes to potential loss of jobs is our timber off of our state lands is only one piece of that. We're in a global market. We're competing globally for timber products and how logs are used. We have to have some new ideas on the table to protect Oregon so we can keep those jobs here while we're also dealing with the financial impacts of an HCP.
One potential solution that's been floated would be to decouple timber revenues from the funding of rural counties and school districts. I asked Kotek if that was something she'd be in favor of, but didn't exactly get a straight answer.
So there might be a longer term conversation out there, but right now we're focused in on the concerns for the near term on the impacts of HCP.
Don't want to take a position on that quite yet.
We will be wrestling with this for the next several years with the legislature about how we support our rural counties.
To finish the interview, I wanted to take a step back. So I asked Kotek what informs her view on environmental issues in Oregon, a state with vast beauty, plentiful natural resources, and some environmental issues that have, so far at least, seemed intractable. She pointed to the time she spent last year traveling to every county in the state, not just the things she saw, but also the people she talked to.
I've been with farmers who talk about their love of the land and how they want to steward the land, and they talk about issues around drought and making sure they have the water for future generations to grow the things we grow in Oregon. What I learned on the road was there's so many people who care about what they do from an environmental perspective that I'm hopeful that we can actually figure this out and continue to do what we're doing here, protect the environment we love, because there's so many beautiful places, but do it in a way that people can be successful, particularly in rural communities.
Cale Williams, KGW News.